So here are the things that you need to make a little funky lamp here. You'll need your 4 toothpicks. This bead that I chose is obviously wood. You could use whatever kind of bead you want. I used this so that I could sand it down real flat. I could paint it the same color as kind of these spikes on here. This is a 12 millimeter bead, just to let you know, and just make sure whatever bead you get that you can actually fit your 4 toothpicks in here, okay, loosely, you know, fairly loosely. This one is cut a little smaller on one side than the other. It doesn't really matter. You need a little piece of fabric, and the fabric needs to be approximately 4.5 centimeters, okay, wide, and then about 5 centimeters tall. All right, if it's a little smaller, it's no big deal. I would have you cut it down if it's a little bit bigger. And I'll show you, we're gonna make a cone shape. If you want this to light, which I would highly suggest, then you'll need some lighting for that. Oh, by the way, you could use paper for this. You could use, you know, that rice paper type of paper, you know, it's translucent. And that would actually be really cool. I just didn't have any of it, so I used fabric. So I forgot to tell you that. That actually would be really cool to do in paper. Whatever color you want it to be, some wood glue, some tacky glue. You've got your fabric scissors, something to sand with, and assorted other things. This is a bamboo skewer. This is totally optional. I'll show you what I use that for. It's just to kind of help with some of it. Started with sanding the bottom of the base and then painting, because that can be drying while we're dealing with the fabric / if you're doing paper. So the skewer is actually just to help with sanding. So it happens to fit into this bead. And especially if you're suffering from a little bit of arthritis or something, holding this bead in place and holding it flat to sand it is a little bit of a challenge. So if you use a piece of wood, or maybe you use a couple of toothpicks and you stick that down in the hole, and then it makes it a lot easier to hold this straight up and down. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to keep flattening the bottom of this, which is desperately needed because it keeps escaping. And I'm just going to go, I don't know. I never really measured what it was. I just sort of eyeballed what I liked for the base. And I'm just going to keep sanding until I get it to whatever height I want. Okay, we're ready to go. You can tell. I just flattened that out really nicely. Then I kind of knocked off any little burrs or anything on the side of this. I kind of checked my toothpicks a little bit. You want to do that. Just make sure they're all nice, because it's time to paint. And this is just not, there's no special tricks or anything here. You can hold on to the very end to do this and give your paint. You'll probably need a couple of coats on this. Depends on what toothpick. I used my bamboo toothpicks, which they usually take 2 coats because it doesn't go on quite as evenly at first. And then it has a nice, then I really have kind of grown to like these bamboo toothpicks. I was real skeptical about that because they're smaller and because they do have a different finish. And then I'm kind of like, hey, it's not too bad. But as you can see, you know, that's just not even, and it won't quite go on even the first time. With this little guy, you know, use your bamboo skewer. Give this, I think I found that this was maybe 2 coats, maybe. But just try to get them, they're a different kind of wood. Try to get them to match. Time for the little cone. So what we're going to do is eventually we're going to roll this. Okay. And then this fits in the middle, and that's your shade. Right? Kind of like that. All right. But we can't just do it like that because we have too much fabric overlap. Now, if you're doing paper the way that I'm showing you, you're going to have to probably freehand it more. I don't know what kind of length that is, but if you're doing fabric, remember, well, fabric or paper, remember, you need 4.5 by 5 centimeters. Okay, now fabric, folks. So we're going to take this and we're going to gently fold this in half. And you don't want to crease it too much, but if you do, not a big deal. So what we're looking for is an opening at the bottom that it will total a centimeter approximately. So that means what I need to do down here at the bottom is from this crease, this fold, I want to measure over my 5 millimeters. Okay, so half that amount. Now, I'm just going to take my ruler, and the pencil shouldn't show on this color, but maybe you need a sewing pencil or a sewing pen where the ink will disappear. Once again, if you're using paper, then you can just go ahead and use your Exacto and cut over, but don't crease as much. Now we're going to, with fabric, it's okay to just draw a line, because I'm just going to have us cut this with scissors. We don't have to use an Exacto. Okay, so leave it folded. Go ahead and cut along your line. Don't worry if you're not a person who can cut this nice and straight. We can always kind of fix that later. Okay, now I can always press that out. I creased it a little bit more. In order to do a cone and have a little bit less extra, then I do want to go ahead and round this off at the top and at the bottom. Okay, so I have the cone shape, but now I'm going to fold this back in half because I already showed you that part. And then I'm just going to kind of trim the pointy part off. Just a little bit. Round that off. You're going to round this a little too, okay? But that's going to round in this, cut this way. Cut from outside to the end instead of cut from the edge to the fold instead of the other way around. Just make your life a little easier. And so then I get this concave cut here. I have a cut up here that's going to need to be cleaned up. And that's okay, because this will probably need to be cleaned up anyway. Even if you made a perfect cone, it's gonna, right, we're gonna go like so. And when we do that, we're gonna have a little bit of trial and error just naturally, okay? So I can tell as I fold this over, see, I'll need to clean that up. That's just the way it goes. Now, I will tell you, I did try to make a pattern of this and post this on a Google drawing, and I just could not get it to look perfect. So this, you may have other approach to making a cone, and that's perfectly fine. But that's our goal, is to make a cone with a nice edge up here, and then we're going to glue these together. So I need to clean that up a little bit right now. Okay, at this point, we can do the following. We have choices. We can go ahead and we can put a thin coat of glue on this if you want, okay, to make it stiffer. If we don't want to do that, then what we're going to do is we're just going to do the edges. Now, I think it's going to be fine for me to just do the edges, and I've shown in other videos many times how if you use your tacky glue on your finger like this and you go over the edges of your fabric, okay, and I can do this down here even, and sure, it's pulling at that a little bit, but what happens when I just dab this on here, then I can trim that up. Whoop. I can trim it. I can pull any loose threads, and I'm going to have a nice crisp edge to do it. And don't get too much glue on there, because then it'll show when you go to light it up. So just be, you know, gentle about it. I'm going to do this bottom here a little bit. Okay, so as you know, we're going to be gluing along the side. So let me get this situated. Don't worry about that part yet. It might not be dry yet. I'm going to do it this way. I'm kind of pushing it over to where I just have a little bit. I'm hoping this is visible. So I did not fold this completely like half and half. I have a little bit sticking out. And that's because I'm just going to go ahead and glue along there. And it looks a mess, but don't worry. Okay, I'm gonna need a little bit more glue than that. Okay, now I am going to fold this side over. So because that came apart looking so rough, I'm gonna trim that. I know this isn't dry, but I want to trim that up. Of course, I cut more, so now I need to move this back a little. All I'm going to do here when I get done messing it up, all I'm going to do is fold this over. That's all I'm doing. And then folding it over, making my seam. Then I'm going to take something, and actually I think, judging by how this is gluing, I'm still going to be able to go in here and mess with this and clean it up. See, now, what I did here is I turned it. What I mean is I didn't stick it down flat. I've now turned this to where I can stick. I think turned it is maybe not the best word. But instead of having that right here on the edge, I turned it as in I made it to where I can smooth this out and I can put in my pencil or something else. And I can look at my seam. And I can also look at the bottom and I can see that I'll need a little trim there. I'll need to get that pencil off of there probably. But now that I have that, see, I can use a toothpick or I can use a really small brush or whatever I want along here, and I want to go ahead and seal this up. Now, really, we can hide this seam, but I just want it as nice as possible so that it'll actually hide and it's not going to stick out with a bunch of edges that are no good. Okay. And yes, it's going to stick to your fingers. I'm going to use my toothpick to go in at this end and kind of clean that up a bit. So once you get this sort of the way you want, you're done adjusting, and before it's dry, like I said, more adjustments can be made. Like, I'm not entirely happy with this edge, and I can go in here, right, and pull that loose slightly and give it a little bit of a trim. And I just don't want it to glue to itself. Okay, so we're gonna wait for this to dry a little bit. I almost forgot a step. So you need to get your light bulb ready to go. So I almost forgot that, because what we want to do is go ahead and thread this here first. And then, and you can make that stick up about like so, however you see fit, closer to the bottom. Okay. And then we're just going to put these in here. And then I have wood glue there, but it's not the best quality wood glue. So it doesn't really matter if you want to use your craft glue or not. I suggest doing maybe 2 at a time only. But what we're doing is we're going ahead and we're putting our toothpicks in here. And we're going to put the toothpicks in here in a way that they are all the same height and that our little lamp doesn't get glued like weird. Oops. What we need to do is fiddle with this a little because they're not the same height. So it's, you know, craft glue gives you a little time. Wood glue as well. It gives you a little time to adjust. But my goal here is that the toothpicks, this is going to require a little bit, I may have to turn off the camera, that those are spread out enough, okay, that my cone will go in here nicely. Okay, maybe down a little bit more. And because ultimately it's going to look like that, right? My cone is a little big, it looks like. That's weird. Okay, no big deal. All right, back to what I was saying. I'm going to do things like hold this upside down to get this adjusted. Make sure that that's flat on the bottom, like my toothpicks aren't sticking up. And I'm going to finagle. Okay, that's actually didn't take that much time. I think they're even now. Gotten glue all over the place. Okay, not bad. So let me clean up some of this mess. And obviously I can go back in here and I can touch up with some paint. I'm going to need to, because I kind of made a mess. But I'll do that off camera. So my next job here will be, as I said, to wiggle this in here. Wiggle this in here. And I want my light bulb to be covered. And I want my seam to be covered. So it should, if all goes well, this bottom is a little wider than I wanted. I can figure that out. This is going to be my gold though. Is my seam covered up? It must be because I can't find it. Okay, it's here. So when I get all of that finagled, all I'm going to do is I'm going to make my last minute adjustments. Like I still see a little niblet here at the top. I'm going to use just a little drop of glue right up here at the top. And I can finagle with this later, but I just want to show you. But I just want a little bit of glue kind of here, right? And I'll need to hold that a little bit probably, you know, and just hold that in place. And I will go around and do that and adjust. And so I'll show you how this looks when it's completed here in a minute. Don't forget to subscribe if you like my channel. And I'll be back with the final product here. So here's our final project. I have a wrinkle in here I need to fix, and there's a little bit of wet glue here and there, but it turned out pretty well. So I hope you enjoyed making this, and please subscribe.